5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. John Adago is on the phone. He's been with us before. We've got a couple of books we want to talk to him about that he wrote. One is called East Meets West: The Stories of Remarkable Men and Women in the East and the West who built a bridge across a cultural divide and introduced meditation and Eastern philosophy to the West. The new book is called Ancient Wisdom Can Enrich Your Life Today, I guess is the subtitle. John has led groups in the study of philosophy, economics, and meditation. He's a writer, obviously. He's a lecturer, a researcher. He's the founder and CEO of a real estate development company and a construction company. And I am so anxious to hear what he has to say, and I have actually a little story I want to share with him as well. John Adago, good morning, John. Thank you for being on our show.
Good morning to you.
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from New Jersey, the Jersey Shore. I'm here near the beach, vacationing.
All right, Jersey Shore. I'm sort of familiar with that area. So here's my story I want to tell you, and hopefully I can make a connection to what you're talking about today. The other day, I was walking through the parking lot, and a bug flew at my mouth and almost went into my mouth. All right, now that doesn't sound like a big deal, right? But it never happens. It just happened the other day, right? The very next day, in a completely different place, I'm walking through a completely different parking lot, and the exact same thing happens. Not only did the exact same, like the description, but the bug hit my upper lip in the exact same place and then flew off and never went in my mouth and went off to the right just like the other one did. It was like the exact same thing happened twice. So my brain said, wait a minute, somebody's trying to communicate with me. And so we don't teach any of this stuff in Western culture, but a lot of the stuff, like things that mean things, right? In Eastern culture, they have these, and I don't know how to diagnose what they mean. But anyway, I thought I would share that with you.
Well, there's accident, and then there are clearly events that, although there seems to be no connection on the physical level, we clearly recognize them as connected. And sometimes we turn a corner and we meet someone, and it's very apparent from the encounter that we needed to meet that person and that this was a useful encounter. So we have these kind of events in our lives, and as Bob Dylan sang, you gather what you can from coincidence.
And maybe the whole reason was so I could tell you the story. Maybe that was the whole reason. See, in your book, you have a story this is why I even told you this. You have a story about you were meditating on the beach, and the lady wanted you to get her up or something at 8 p.m. or something, so she ate.
Yes.
And then a year later, the same exact thing happened, right?
Yes, it was actually 15 years apart.
15?
Two different women. 15 years prior, I had sat with a woman to meditate, and she asked me to let her know when it was 8 o'clock she wanted to wake her son. And then 15 years later, I was sitting on a porch with another lady and gentleman, and she asked me the same thing. And when we finished the meditation, the first lady pulled up in a car to visit the second lady, and none of us had seen each other in 15 years. Oh my
gosh, isn't that crazy? Wow.
So it was such, you can't dismiss that as a random coincidence. On some level, you recognize that these events are connected.
Yeah. And is there a way to be sure, or are we always guessing what things mean? Well,
the point is that we're awake to see the meaningful events in our life when they occur. Sometimes we kind of take note of them in a rear-view mirror, but then there are times when we're fortunate enough to meet an event and we're fully present, we're cognizant, and that impression comes into us in a different way. It's digested by us. It affects our lives. I think we've all had those kind of events. I remember certain ones in my life. One of them was, the day I married my wife. I remember standing in front of the church and watching her walk down the aisle, and there was no doubt in my mind that this was all so familiar, that I had experienced this event before. There's no way of knowing, but certainly the impression registers very strongly.
Okay.
And that's what these people wrote about. What I write about in Ancient Wisdom is what the master teaches over the generations, taught to mankind. And we tend to think of it as a bunch of old guys teaching stuff that isn't particularly relevant to us anymore.
Right.
But in fact, the greatest tragedy of the present is if we forget the wisdom of the past. Because these great master teachers and spiritual leaders, Moses and Jesus and Buddha and Socrates, what they were writing was not some ethereal or theoretical stuff. They taught men and women how to lead more fulfilled, happy, useful lives.
Yeah, I think so too. So does it suggest that there's a spirit world communicating with us? If something happens and there's a meaning to it, it suggests to me anyway that there's a supreme being, a God, whatever, that's actually behind it, I guess.
Well, it's hard to look out there at all of the different life forms and manifestations of the trees and animals and the tens of thousands of different forms of life, and then look around the suns and the millions of stars and the planets and all of that phenomena and say, wow, that was kind of all a cosmic accident and there's no intelligence out there.
Right, I'm with you.
Yeah. I mean, that really defies common sense. Clearly, there's an intelligence manifesting in pretty much everything we behold, outside ourselves and within ourselves.
Yeah.
You talk about doubt. If people have doubt, are they sabotaging themselves and what they are doing in their life?
Yeah, I think that's something that we're all plagued with and something we need to put behind us. We need to meet the moment where we are, and to waste time thinking about regrets of past deeds or worrying about future things that haven't happened yet. Really what we need to do is bring the attention right where we are now, and with the confidence that we will meet it with our full intelligence, our full willingness. And then when a little thought comes through of like, well, maybe I shouldn't have, or maybe I could have done it a different way, you kind of put that aside, because what's important is this decision right now.
John, I think you said the biggest mistake would be if the current generation forgot the wisdom of the past. I think also the wisdom of the East and whatever we have in the West. I think the two coming together probably benefit everybody. I've often thought that it is the music or the culture, maybe the food, I don't know, but the customs that somehow attract us to other cultures that brings the two together. That's the bridge. The bridge is those things. Do you think so?
Yes. I mean, in East meets West, I tell the stories of about 13 teachers in the East and in the West who sought out the knowledge that would help men and women lead fulfilling lives, that they would achieve the ultimate purpose of the human life. And it was about 60 or some odd years ago, in 1945, when the atom bombs went off, the master teachers in the East kind of were startled. Suddenly, the West had developed technology that might actually terminate all life on the planet. At that point, they felt that it was no longer proper to hold their wisdom and their spiritual sciences to themselves, and they reached out to the West. At the same time, there were men and women in the West that began to seek esoteric knowledge from the East. And I talk about a dozen of these different people and how they came together, and people like the Maharishi and Muktananda, people who taught meditation, who brought Indian knowledge and philosophy and made it available to the West.
Right.
It was really quite a phenomenal event, because when you think about it, 60 years ago, meditation was unknown in the West. Now it's a household word, along with mantra and yoga and karma. Virtually every religion has resurrected, revived a form of meditation. And it's really transformed, the Eastern influence has transformed the way we think about and practice our spirituality in the West.
Do we get caught up in the messenger and thereby sometimes miss the message?
Perhaps, because there are times, if the man is a man of substance, when he passes on, his teaching doesn't fade. Moses and Christ passed on, and it's thousands of years later, and there's still an impulse that are uplifting Western civilization. And Socrates probably had as profound an influence on Western civilization as anyone, because these men were men of substance. This just wasn't theoretical knowledge. They achieved a very high level of reason and goodness, and sought to teach us how to do the same.
You talk about lies in your book, that some might be innocent lies. I figure all lies are lies, and they're not good.
Yes, actually, I presented it. That's sometimes the current belief. But when you detect a lie, either in the business community or among anyone, your guard should go up, because lies indicate that there is malice, that there is ill intent. And so we begin by meeting people with the presumption of goodness and fair play. And I think that's appropriate. But once you detect a lie, well, then you need to protect yourself, because these master teachers, these men and women, they had their feet on the ground. They understood that a wise man or woman was also a strong man and woman, and they protected themselves from the inferior qualities of others.
The book the new book has different essays. Were they done like after meditation? Were they inspired by something you experienced?
Well, they were all inspired by experiences and things that I'd read and conversations I had with other people, stories that had kind of. I've been involved in the study and the teaching of philosophy for over 40 years, and in the course of that time, you absorb far more than you even know. And so my experience was you sit down to write, and just things come to the surface and get written down. And I'm almost an independent observer to the process. Sometimes I look back at something I've written and go, who wrote that?
I'm sure you do.
Where'd that come from?
Chuck, I was wondering if you could comment a little bit on, I guess it's a culturally popular thing for the last 10 years or so, is the law of attraction. You hear people talk about this a lot. Can you talk about that? And I just want to add one thing, and you can comment on what I'm saying. If there is such a thing as the law of attraction, I always feel like it's kind of what we've always believed, that if you ask God for something, He'll deliver it. It's not really necessarily anything new. But the other thing is, people seem to be wanting to be able to use the law of attraction, like to get a new car or to or something. I don't know. Maybe a new car is a good thing, actually. But I mean something that seems superficial in a way. Maybe car is not the right example. But
no, I understand the question. It's clear.
Thank you.
One of the teachers I speak about in East Meets West, his name was Gurdjieff. And one of the things that Gurdjieff said was, your level of being, your level of understanding attracts your life. This is kind of a profound statement. He wasn't saying what you wanted necessarily, but what you are. So as you progress in life and you become either a finer or a coarser human being, either your desires become more refined and with hopefully a little bit more discernment and discrimination, then you find yourself attracted to a different circle of people, a different circle of events. And they are comparable to your present level of understanding, and I would say, for lack of a better word, your goodness. Then there's definitely this question of, we get what we want. And we can look back on our lives and kind of see that, you had a wish for this, and it manifests. Kind of the cosmic joke is, you get what you want, but you have to take everything that goes along with it.
That's
and
right.
sometimes that's a little bit of a surprise. I met a lady, and I offered to buy her a cup of coffee, and now we have 3 children and 4 grandchildren.
Well, it is true. I guess a Western way of saying what you just said is, be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah. So it would be nice if you were kind of consciously participating in the process, instead of just being pulled around all day by different desires, often conflicting desires.
In your book, Ancient Wisdom, you were meeting with a pastor, I think, and then you had hit your head, and you were going, or the person was going to say, well, that's okay, I'll deal with it. And then he took you through, to the infirmary, he called it, but along the way there were signs that were visible, that were read, and that was very fascinating.
It was a wonderful story of an event that happened to me. I took a very hard fall, and just on a moist sidewalk. There seemed to be no reason for me to fall, but it was a hard fall. And an hour or so later, I got a message from this pastor who owned the property that I was walking around. He just wanted to see me because he was concerned about me. But what was interesting about it was after we conversed a bit, we formed a friendship. And he later took me to other places, and I still correspond with him, even though this was 15 years ago. And I realized that none of this would have happened had the fall not taken place. And it kind of moved me. I mean, that there's some sense of a larger sense of destiny or fate somehow moving me in a particular direction.
Oh, wow.
Well, how does a person accept that when that happens, that this really is kind of preordained?
Well, there's will as well as fate. I mean, Christianity teaches us you reap what you sow. And I think most of us have found that in our life, that you pursue things and you get certain results. So you need to be careful about what it is that you pursue and what it is that you think you want. So there is will. And then there are these whole set of factors that are bigger than us. Our time of life, the culture we're born into, the seasons, whether we're born in a time of peace or war. Those conditions are not a matter of our will, but how we relate to those conditions, how we play the hand we're dealt. That's very much within our decision-making process.
Our guest is John Adago, and we're talking philosophy in general. He's got two books. Both of them are wonderful. East Meets West is, I think this is the book you were on with us once before. Am I right?
Yes, about 4 years ago. Yes.
Yep.
And then
the second edition. Right, the second edition was just published along with this book, the second book, which is Ancient Wisdom. Both of the books are available on Amazon. My website is www.thejourneyback.net, thejourneyback.net. The books are available. The books have gotten excellent reviews, and I'm here speaking to you in the hopes that we'll actually sell some books today.
Okay, absolutely. I wanted to say something. I think a lot of us are not caught up necessarily, but we're busy with our lives. We're going to work. We're taking care of the kids. We're fixing the car repairs and the house repairs and cleaning the yard. We're just doing our normal daily things. And thoughts that are considered to be maybe spiritual are few and far between. Even Sunday at church, you're probably a little bit into that, and then kind of get back into the normal thing. What happens to us? I think this is normal. I'm not saying it's always or for everybody, but when somebody dies, or a pet dies, or something close to you has changed in a way that makes you sad. That's when we start thinking about God and start praying really harder than ever. Is there any solace in ancient wisdom that actually we could tap into that maybe can get us through this a little easier?
Well, absolutely. That's what these master teachers have all taught. What they taught is, how is it that I approach or live my life so that it has a deeper, more profound meaning? And there have always been men and women who sought to fulfill what some call the highest purpose of a human life. But this requires coming in contact with esoteric knowledge that's not generally available. It requires coming in contact with groups of people with a common aim. Stephen Ouspensky called this engaging in the work of knowing thyself, the work of realizing your highest potential. And the key is that if these teachers are to accomplish their aim is to motivate us to begin to seek something deeper, something that isn't so subject to change, something that we think might even survive death of the body.
And you always advocate the focus by having a quiet time, because if you're starting to reflect something, you can't allow anything else to distract you.
Yes. It doesn't take much self-observation to realize that the state of our attention could be better. As the gentleman said a little while ago, you're listening to something and the thought wanders off to the past or the future or a day at the beach, and you're really not connected to what's happening right now. And what the master teaches, their key was to how does one go about strengthening and refining the power of attention. And one of the techniques that most of them incorporated in their work was a meditation. It was a short period of time each day that one set aside all the mental and physical and emotional activity, and you come fully to rest in the stillness of yourself. That you dive deep, so to speak, that you touch your spiritual center. And this is something that I've done most of my adult life, and it's really quite practical, because when you touch this stillness within yourself, that's really the source of your creative energy. It's the source of your intelligence. And after a period of meditation, you come out refreshed in a certain way, with a finer energy and a little bit more focused. So I found that the practice improves one's life in a very practical way.
When you do meditation, do you sometimes have the out of body experience?
I wouldn't describe it that way. What is experienced is something peaceful, still, quiet, profound. One touches, and in a period of 20 or 30 minute meditation, one may only touch this for a few minutes or a few seconds. But visiting a spot that's still and quiet and full, you find that in fact you lack nothing, that everything you seek is within yourself. And this definitely shifts the perspective of life.
Wow.
Again, John Adago is our guest, and I'm going to ask you to repeat the information we need to get the books. I have a copy of each of the two books that John wrote, Ancient Wisdom and East Meets West. I'd like to give both of them to one listener. If you call me at 622-9622, I'll take a call at random and leave both books for you. The rest of us have to buy them. I found both of them on Amazon. Can you give us the other website again, please?
It's thejourneyback.net.
Okay, thejourneyback.net.
Thejourneyback.net, where you'll see my bio and the two books, but that's going to refer you to Amazon to purchase them.
Okay.
Do you and your wife ever have quiet time together to meditate, or is this just a single thing?
No, it is. There were many years in which we sat and meditated regularly together. At this stage of our life, sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. I find myself and my wife, we're in had different measures. She's preoccupied with her children and her grandchildren and her life domestically and her life career-wise, and I tend to be. But we come together. We study this philosophy together for 25 years. We're also both practicing Catholics. We attend Mass together regularly. Which is important. I mean, if there's going to be a marriage, there has to be a union.
Sure.
And on a spiritual as well as a physical level.
John, let me get the book away. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
Okay, this is Gene from Maine. Oh, the books are wonderful.
Okay.
Boy, thank him.
Tell me your name again. Gene?
Gene.
Okay, Gene, you got him. They'll be waiting for you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. John, thank you. Obviously, you're going to do really well with these books, as always. Have a great summer, and come back with the next book.
I will. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Thank you so much, John. We will take a break. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Chris Foster. President Trump's on his way to Iowa now, then Illinois later today to talk about jobs and trade. Tariffs have driven down prices for some American farmers in the Midwest. White House counsel Kellyanne Conway tells Fox, be patient. The president's trade strategy will work.